It took me 5 years to bring this AE86 home. Lockdowns, missing paperwork, failed trips. I nearly gave up on it completely. And then the person who built it reached out. The same person we uncovered in the last episode. For the final episode, we have to go all the way back to 2020.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus.
This was the first time I'd ever seen this 86 in Japan. It was on Facebook. At the time, I was sitting at home in the middle of the pandemic, editing Japan in a van. Like everyone else during lockdown, I was procrastinating, fed up, staring at the computer, so I started scrolling Facebook. And then I saw a post from JDM Auction Watch in Ireland. It was the AE86 Levin, and they had it up for sale. It immediately caught my eye. The wing, the stickers, the stance, it just looked right. It was the first car I'd seen in a while that really stood out to me. And then I just thought to myself, that would actually be the perfect sit-in and drive drift 86. At the time, my Truno had gone way beyond what I would have ever intended. What was supposed to be a fun street car turned out to be a full restoration. And I'd realised that I'd probably never have the rough and ready drift car that I've always lusted for. I'd also just been editing footage of Rob's green A86, and it reminded me how much fun a simple drift car could be. Around that time, I'd even taken out the cash to buy the red 180, but the owner bailed on the deal last minute. Rob offered me his green Truno, but then he decided to keep it, and he instead promised that he would keep an eye out to find something up my alley. So I saved the photos of the Levin off JDM Auction Watch and put them into my archive. And honestly, I didn't think anything else of it. So a few weeks passed and Rob messaged me. He'd been watching Japan in a van, and he asked me a question completely out of the blue. Would you ever like to come to Japan, buy an 86 and actually experience driving it there? The loan I had for the 180 was just sitting there in my bank account. Then Rob said he had something to show me, which I'll never forget. And he sent me pictures of an A86, and I couldn't believe it. It was the exact same Levin that I'd saved a few weeks previously from Facebook. This cool glittery Levin. So Rob explained the backstory. The car had gone through auctions in Japan, and AI from Car Factory AI had sent it to Rob because they were friends. Her brother Kaizumi, who many of you will recognise from Hot Version or driving the pink N2 Corolla for Car Factory AI, he has his own shop as well. He'd actually bought the Levin from auction, but he wanted to sell it privately to someone that they trusted. Rob figured I was the perfect person for this car, and honestly, he was right. This car was exactly my kind of thing. Loads of stickers, cool parts, tons of character. The perfect car alongside this super clean Truno I was building. A Truno hatch and 11 coupe was always the dream. So the plan was simple. Rob would help me get the car ready. We drifted in Japan, and then I could either leave it there or ship it home. So I said, yeah, 100%. Rob asked Kaizumi for more photos, and one of those pictures is the picture that showed the K-style sticker on the front panel. That photo eventually sparked the entire history investigation, which you just saw in the last episode. I spent all the time during COVID just trying to research this car, and I've sat on this for the last 5 years. It's funny how that sticker just launched everything. At the time though, I didn't know how deep the history actually went. I was just really excited to buy the car. After I sent Rob the money, Rob went to pick it up, so it was a pretty long spin for him. He was already delivering some cars to Kaizumi at the time, and her shop was in Hyogo, and her brother's shop was way up in Nagano. Rob actually filmed the whole collection mission for me, which I'm so grateful for.
Alright, Juicebox's latest purchase. Nah, not the house. This thing. Old school Drift 86. Rough and ready. Fuck yeah, very cool.
At the time, I was locked indoors editing videos during lockdown, which was honestly a pretty depressing period for me and probably for everybody. So doing Japan in a van was giving me a glimmer of hope, and in between the editing sessions, Rob was sending me through photos and videos, and he probably has no idea how much of a boost that was for my mental health.
That glitter.
It was just, it really helped me out during like shitty times. Every update was just this little dopamine hit in between me doing slogs of video editing. So at the time, Rob was in partnership with Toshi from Alpha Project Imports, and they had a workshop together. Rob brought the Levin there and started sending me photos of it sitting in the workshop. Little snapshots of it lurking in the background. To Rob, they were just normal workshop photos, but to me, these meant everything. I'd never bought a car in Japan before, let alone a cool A86, and every photo made it feel more real. Unfortunately, the pandemic just got worse.
Japan is further tightening its border control measures.
The plan was for me to fly over around Christmas 2020 and drive the car, but the border stayed closed, so Rob kept the Levin in storage for me while we waited. Around that time, life threw a huge curveball. Toshi ended up dealing with serious legal situations and ended up getting locked up. At the same time, Rob stepped away from the business and went back working at Stacked Imports in Osaka, and he brought the Levin with him. And once again, I started getting cool photos. The Levin sitting up on the storage racks. Mundane for Rob again, but for me these photos meant a lot. It was super cool. So eventually Rob decided to go back driving trucks. It's something that he always loved, and the guys at Stacked kindly agreed to store the Levin there while we waited for the world to open up again. And that's how the car ended up sitting there for almost 2 years. I kept paying storage fees, hoping the car wasn't causing a nuisance to anyone. Seems storage space in Japan is hard enough to find, especially for project cars, so I was very grateful to Stacked for helping me out. During that time, the Levin even appeared in an E-Aught video.
So this is kind of crazy to see in real life. You guys are probably tripping how they put these cars on the walls. Rob was explaining how they get them on these racks. They have these rubber, kind of like rubber plates, where they put them underneath the frame. It's real soft. Everything is up here.
And it ended up in a Speed Hunters feature, so I also saved those pictures. It was cool just seeing these little snippets in the car just appearing here and there in people's media, and nobody had any idea that I even owned it. So eventually in 2023, the borders finally opened up. It was time to go back to Japan and drive the car. That trip became Japan with a plan, and Rob pulled the Levin down from storage, brought it to Hamishin's workshop from Waidan, and the guys gave it a service before we arrived. So if you are watching this channel for a long time, you know that things didn't go to plan. We were put into quarantine and we were locked up for 3 days, and that was supposed to be where we were supposed to go drift the car. So I had to like extend my trip for another week so I could drive at Bahaku. It almost never worked out, and that dream almost never happened. After that mission, I had to figure out where the Corolla would live next. Our friend Alex from Circuit Soul, he came to Bahaku with me the last day of my trip when I was drifting the 86. He offered to store it in his yard until we figured out what was going to happen with the car next. But the thing was, there was still a huge problem: the paperwork. With Toshi being locked up, the export documents had basically kind of vanished into thin air. I just sat patiently and we left the car in Alex's yard for another 1.5 years until we figured out what we could do. Eventually, Toshi managed to prove his innocence, which is, you know, incredible, and I was so happy for him. After giving him some time to get his life back together, I reached out to see if there was any way we could recover the paperwork for the AE86, and to Toshi's credit, he came through. He tracked everything down for me, and he updated the export cert. When a car is prepared for export in Japan, it receives an export certificate, but that certificate only stays valid for a certain amount of time. Because of the pandemic, the Levin certificate had expired, so Toshi arranged a 6-month extension, and that's where the real race began. I flew out to Japan in July, which is the footage you've just seen recently of me getting my K4 GP license. Unfortunately, Alex caught COVID, so he couldn't fly out from Canada. So that was an unsuccessful trip, and it kind of broke my heart because I knew time was ticking. Then we did the K4 GP, and that's the mission you saw in the very first video, where right after the race, we went down to get the car, and we tried to get up to Tokyo as quick as possible. Sadly, the certificate only had a few days left on it, and the shipping company told us that the paperwork would have to remain in date while the car sits at the port. So that was essentially another failed trip to get this car home. I was like extremely heartbroken. It was an expensive mission, and twice I'd failed. At that point, it just kind of felt like it wasn't meant to be, and I thought that the Levin might never leave Japan. I was pretty deflated, pretty defeated, and yeah, I'd spent quite a lot of money trying to make this happen. So that's where I ended up buying a yellow K70, because I figured, well, this other car is never coming back to Ireland, so I'll just build another one here. But then the car was sitting at Andrew Joyce's up at First Joyce, and he was sending me pictures and just kind of keeping the momentum going. And every time Andrew sent me a picture, I was like, I can't give up on this car. I've been through so much with it already, and it's been such a big part of my life without me even really realising it. I reached out to Toshi again and explained the story about what happened. Honestly, Toshi, if you ever watch this, thank you so much. I gotta give you credit. He probably thought we were idiots because of what happened, but I explained the situation, and he went through the effort to go and getting the export cert updated again, and I can't thank him enough for that, so thank you so much, man. So once everything was finally sorted, the car was at Andrews in Tokyo, so he got to work preparing for shipping. He removed anything out of the car that could have been stolen, like gauges, shift knobs, anything that was kind of fancy, because unfortunately all that stuff does get stolen. And what's cool is he brought the car to Daikoku Island, Yokohama. That's where the car was shipped from, and I will never forget it. Andrew, thank you so much. When you sent me the pictures of the car at the port, oh man, I nearly started crying. Like, I mean, it was 5 years, like, just of all the shit we'd gone through with this car, and the Levin was finally leaving Japan. When I got the name of the ship, I actually paid for the pro version of Vessel Finder so I could track the ship across the world. You probably realize from watching the videos here, like, importing a car is the ultimate dream for me. I lived through the import boom. I never got a chance to do any of that stuff then. This was finally my chance to bring a car home from Japan. I'd already made memories with the Levin, so I was so heavily invested in this thing. So the ship that the car went on was called the Themis, run by Wallace Wilmson. I don't know how to say that, I'm sorry. So for people that don't know, know, these ships are called ro-ros, which is a roll-on, roll-off carrier. Huge floating car transporters that move thousands of vehicles around the world every day. So most of these ships bring brand new cars around, but they also leave space for used stuff that's bought at auction. The car was loaded in Yokohama near Daikoku, and then the ship slowly worked its way down the Japanese coast, loading more cars. From there it travelled across Asia, past Madagascar, around the Cape of Good Hope, then stopped in La Palma in Gran Canaria, the same port where me and Ruben drove the KE from a few months ago. I tracked this boat religiously for weeks. It felt like Christmas as a kid. It was the closest feeling I've had to that in a long time. And after everything that had happened with this car, I just couldn't believe it was on the way. I thought something was going to happen. It just felt too good to be true. So eventually the car arrived in Southampton, and then it went to Zeebrugge in Belgium, one of the biggest car ports in Europe. So the big boats can't fit into the port in Ireland, so the Levin was unloaded and then it was transferred to a smaller ro-ro ship, and that ship was called the Malacca Highway, and then from there it made its journey to Dublin port. I waited patiently for the email and it finally came through. The Levin had landed in Ireland. I had to submit a few documents, the bill of landing, shipping paperwork, and pay the port fees, and Andrew had emailed everything I needed. Once the fees were paid, the car was cleared for collection, and in less than 24 hours of the car coming off the boat, it was ready to collect. Obviously I wanted to go get it straight away, so Rob from our shed with the Evo, he drove me up to Dublin, and it was a normal day for Rob because he imports cars, but for me this was literally the dream come true. Ooh. Oh man, look at her. What do you think, Rob? When I saw that Levin sitting in the port, surrounded by a sea of Volkswagens and normal cars, like, I honestly was fighting back the tears, lads. It was just insane. I was worried that they would have stolen Donald Duck and Mickey Mouse cup holders, but everything has remained. How's it feel? Like a brand new car. I brought Flip with me because he'd been part of the journey the whole time, and I let Flip drive it out of the port and drive it back. I felt like it was part of the mission. We had to drive the car home. 5 years of waiting, and the car was finally on Irish soil. We filled the car up with fuel and made our way back to Waterford. And what's funny is the tank was actually full of water because of the holes that we'd made to put in the little fuel pump switch. But somehow, I don't know how luck was on our side, because the car was spluttering towards the end of the mission, but we made it back to the shed.
The fucking noise! The diff is getting louder and louder and louder. It's actually insane. Oh, and the car is starting to cut out. What the fuck?
In Ireland you get 1 day's grace where you can drive the car home before registration. So we printed out the old plates in Japan, stuck them on the window and took a chance. And looking back, we probably should have put the car on a truck. It was a super stupid idea, but we had to drive the car home. We'd driven it from Alex's to Andrew's, and then we felt we needed to drive it back to the shed, so we wanted to complete the journey. So back at the shed, we did a quick refresh, drained the tank, new fuel pump, and got it ready for registration.
No. Oh, see.
It might be hard for you to see there, but that looks like piss. Can you see the bottom of the barrel? Look, it looks like orange juice.
That's shite on the inside.
In Ireland you have to put the car through a thing called VRT, which is Vehicle Registration Tax, and thankfully cars over 30 years old, it's a fixed rate of €200 plus €12 for recycling fees for the tyres. A few days later then the plates arrived, and seeing this Japanese drift car on Irish soil, to this day, even when I'm looking back at this footage, is completely surreal. Naturally we celebrated the only way we know how. We took the car to KFC, which is a terrible tradition that we did with my Truno years ago, but it felt like a nice way to close the chapter. This car had been a part of my life, like a thorn in my side, always in the background. The doubts, the setbacks, wondering if I could ever make a home with this. And then somehow in the end it all worked out. I got to drift it in Japan, take it on a road trip, and finally bring the car back to Ireland. It's more than I could have ever imagined doing in my life with this obsession for Japanese cars and old Corollas. And then something unexpected happened. For 5 years, this car was just a part of my life, something in the background. And then somehow, the person who made this car reaches out to me. And her name is Chi. So, I told you in the last video that she reached out to me, and we've been chatting for the last week and stuff, and it's been pretty heavy, like, you know, this is bringing back a lot of emotions for her, and yeah, I wanted to give a little piece towards the end of this video so we could appreciate her story. She got into drifting in 1996, back when Initial D was becoming popular, and her boyfriend at the time got her hooked. Yeah, she just lived the life. She told me she worked all day so she could go drifting all night, driving to Toge, running circuits, and then sitting in places like Denny's afterwards just talking about cars till all hours. It sounds like a completely different era, and this Levin was right in the middle of all of it. She also told me the supercharged A92, it had actually been carried across multiple 86s that she'd owned over the years, but the supercharger setup never gave up on her. It had been rebuilt, swapped, kept alive, and somehow it's still in the Levin today. So the car itself went through different versions too. At one point she painted it herself using lace curtain and spray cans to create the pattern. It was just her messing around trying to be creative with these chassis when they were cheap. She told me then in 2007 the car was repainted to the black flake that it has now. She loved the sparkle on it, and even the small details like the wing was made by her friend Hirano. She was best friends with Hirano's wife. She spent a lot of time in the workshop back then. So this is where it gets pretty heavy. She told me when she sees the car now, it brings back a lot of memories, and you could honestly feel it talking to her, like remembering a whole chapter of her life. She said to me, every day with the car became a memory. Driving it at the circuit, painting it, running at the mountain roads at night. It was never just one big moment. She even told me about entering Ikaten where the gearbox blew up right after a run. At the time it probably wasn't funny, but now she can look back and laugh at it. And that's what was in volume 84 of Option. That was her time to shine, and unfortunately things didn't work out for her, but she can look back now and laugh at the whole situation, which is cool. Like, she told me she used to drive Mayhem a lot and it was her favourite circuit. Lincoln Corners and the supercharger was a blast. That was her favourite track to drive. She said outside of that then she just loved the late nights street drifting, Route 22, Kinjo Pier, Nabeta, just driving every single night. She was just young and it just felt completely normal at the time. She told me looking back now she can't believe they actually did it, but that was her life at the time and they all just kind of took it for granted. One thing that really stuck with me that was pretty heavy, it's something a bit personal, but she said please include it. She ended up getting divorced, so that house in Cedo where the car was sitting up on the lift, like, that was their family home. That was sold. Her car was sold. That's when it went to auction. All her photos, videos, all her memories, everything was gone. They're pretty much just fading memories. She told me that when I started sending her all the magazine photos and pictures, it made her cry. All these moments that she thought were gone forever, they all still somehow existed somewhere in the world. And yeah, I brought all that back for her. She told me she's really happy that it's still being looked after. She told me she misses the car dearly, but she's remarried, moved on, and has a new life. And all these memories were just part of her past. She said it must have been fate that I ended up with her old car. She even said, "You're 86 now, it must be happy." It's just pretty insane if you think about it. I just had all these magazines and unlocked this whole part of her life that she gets to relive again. She said the last 2 weeks have been absolutely wonderful. She's just been reliving all these old memories, and I just sent her on all the scans, sent her everything. And it's all stuff that she'd lost. She just had moved on from this part of her life. You know, that's just insanely heavy, lads. I couldn't believe it, like. It's incredible that some like ginger lad from Ireland that likes Corollas, that has all this stuff that's behind me here, could somehow open up that wormhole for someone again and they could just relive that part of their life. Because up until that point, I just thought I'd bought another cool 86, but hearing all of this kind of changes everything. All these old cars from Japan all had stories, lives, memories. They were something to somebody at one stage. This isn't just any car. It's a car that's been through people's lives. Different versions, different eras, different stories. Talking with Chi was heavy. It gave me a real respect for that time and the people who lived it. And now somehow I'm just the next part of the story, the next chapter. This is it, man. This feels like a checkpoint. I never ever thought in my life that these cars would ever be together. I've always wanted to drift an AE86. I missed out on the cheap ones years ago and got carried away restoring my 86. So this Levin is going to be that car. It's a drift car with 30 years of history, and now this is like a brand new chapter. I'm going to slowly develop it, drive it, and enjoy it exactly how it was meant to be used, and hopefully continue the story. I just want to keep it the way it is and just refresh stuff that's tired and old. This story has been wild, but I'm really glad I documented it, and I'm incredibly grateful that this car somehow ended up falling into my life. Call it fate, call it whatever. It's just crazy that a car from the magazines ended up in my life and I managed to just give back those memories to somebody on the other side of the world. I really hope you've enjoyed this little three-parter on the Levin. It's been a heavy few weeks and it's taken me over 5 years to tell this story. It's just incredible that this stuff can bring people together like this. I'm looking forward to the new chapter with this Corolla, and I've got Chi's blessing, and yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this. It's been really special. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Take care.